Frederick Toomey is one of our more interesting senators, a former senator. He is of Pennsylvania. It's his fault the Phillies lost, and he exited after that. And he joins us today. He's on the board of Apollo now, among other good duties here in his former career. What's the biggest difference of moving from the august Senate of Washington into the private space?
Well, there are a lot. Having control of your own schedule is one of them. The majority leader gets to decide when votes will occur, and you have to be on the floor in person to cast a vote. When you're out of the Senate, you have a lot more say in what you're doing and where.
That's a huge difference in the House right now, where there's one or two people away, and that changes it for Speaker McCarthy.
And that can happen in the Senate also.
Yeah.
How much do you kind of feel like you wouldn't necessarily run if the dynamics were the same now as they were when you started in politics?
Honestly, for me, I was in federal office for 18 years, 12 consecutive years in the Senate, and prior to that a gap, and then 6 years in the House. For me, that was enough. I was ready to move on. I have no regrets. I mean, I really enjoyed and appreciated the chance to pursue the policies that I believed in, but I don't like the idea of being there forever for anybody, myself included. So I was ready to move on.
You're cut from a different cloth. I mean, there's Morgan Grenfell, and then you ran Rookie's Restaurant, you know, Lehigh Valley, and all that. But what you're really acclaimed for is standing up to the former president and saying the behavior's not appropriate. We have seen an absolutely historic moment for the nation that will continue in the coming weeks and months. What is the best practice right now of centrist Republicans as they address this indictment in Miami?
Well, so I'm a conservative Republican, and my conservatism sort of requires me to call out the completely unacceptable and egregious behavior of the former president as it manifests itself periodically. Look, I think Republicans should call it for what it is. This is a completely unforced, unnecessary, outrageous abuse of the responsibility that the American people gave this president. He knew those documents didn't belong to him, but it wasn't just a sloppiness. It wasn't just a matter of, oh, okay, a few papers got mixed in with some of my mementos. It was lying about it. It was hiding it. It was suggesting to his lawyers that they make it disappear. It was discussing it in front of reporters, someone writing a book and recording this. And apparently, if we can believe the allegations, which I think they're there for a reason, it included very sensitive military secrets of the United States of America. So, as is often the case, Donald Trump is his own worst enemy. He makes a foolish mistake and then compounds it massively. And look, this is indefensible behavior.
I went back and looked at a September effort by Philip Bump in the Washington Post working off Pew Research, and I was thunderstruck at the countable research of how small MAGA is. It's not that great a part of the American pie. How does the broader sense of Republicans in independence not defend themselves, but just react, adjust, and move forward if MAGA's really not all that big? Boy, their megaphone's large.
Yeah, but the unfortunate reality in my mind is the president former president still does have a large level of support, and it's complicated, right? It's part of it is historical, part of it is a sense of the grievances that he fans. Part of it is the perception that he's being unfairly treated, and so even if he did something wrong, it's not a fair treatment. So it's complicated. Here's my theory: is the cumulative weight of all of the drama, all of the unnecessary misery, all of the lawsuits, the allegations, all of this is going to cause increasing numbers of Republicans, even if they've been sympathetic to Donald Trump, to say, okay, maybe he did a good job as president. We got to move on.
One of the rare things about you is that you can really dovetail from Washington to Wall Street, and that's sort of been your background, going back and forth. And we're talking about the politics of the moment at a time when Fed policy is going to dictate a lot on Wall Street for the next couple of years. How concerned are you growing, given the politicization of the inflation debate? How concerned are you that this Fed is not really convicted enough to go through with their mandate and get inflation back down to where it should be?
So I lean in the other direction. I think this Fed is very, very concerned about, their legacy, their reputation. They know that they got this badly wrong. They kept rates way too low, monetary policy way too easy for way too long. They established a flawed paradigm for determining when they would change. They got behind the curve. I think the risk is that they overdo it, and partly for the same reason that they went too far. In my conversations with Fed governors and senior staff, I was always surprised at how dismissive so many of them are about money supply, how dismissive they are about what Milton Friedman taught us, and how focused they are on things like inflation expectations rather than the 40% growth in M2 that they were responsible for in 18 months. So they might miss the collapse of the growth in M2, for instance, and misdiagnose what's going on, in my view. I think there's a great risk they go too far.
Are you agreeing with Elizabeth Warren?
I don't think so, because I think Elizabeth Warren was opposed to any kind of normalizing of interest rates, I think. May be a mischaracterization, but I think that's true. We now have positive real interest rates, I would argue, certainly if you're looking on a month-to-month basis. We have had money supply growth go to zero. We have the Fed shrinking its balance sheet. We have the Treasury's going to go out and absorb, $1 trillion worth of cash from the economy. So you put all that together and you look at how inflation has obviously rolled over. And I think we're probably on the right trajectory now. I'm not in the camp of easing by any means. I think the pause is probably the right thing to do. But you look at the dot plot, and it looks as though they're going higher from here. So maybe that's the right call. I think the era is more likely to occur on excessive tightening.
Bloomberg surveillance has a great affection for politicians who come from a different territory than just pure politics as well. I was talking to our Greg Giroux, and he looks at the mess which is known as the coming presidential campaign. Yeah. And I would just suggest, sir, that you consider here in your private moments, private citizen moments, that we need a LaSalle Academy ticket. Now, I think Governor Raimondo and Pat Toomey could get together and bring Rhode Island to the nation. What's in the pixie dust at LaSalle Academy, Providence, Rhode Island, that gives us the Commerce Secretary and the former senator?
I think our Commerce Secretary is a very capable person, one of the more impressive members of the entire administration. But our worldviews still differ considerably. And I had a great experience at LaSalle Academy. It's a great school. But she and I won't be teaming up anytime soon.
What's the worldview you see at the debates of the Republican Party? I believe they start in August. What is that going to be
There's some very big ones, right? And this is really important. There's what is our role in the world? I mean, you have a wing of the party that thinks we shouldn't even be helping Ukrainians. I think that's crazy, but there's people who are advocating that. You have a wing of the party that wants to completely explicitly reject market capitalism and have central planning of industrial policy.
We're going to have to leave it there. After your Apollo board meeting, please come back and continue. I do want to talk to you about China. I think that's really front and center as well.
Thanks for having me.
He is with Apollo. Patrick Toomey is a former senator of Pennsylvania. Please stay with us.